You feel it more and more lately. That quiet sense that the world sped up, and somewhere along the way, it left you behind. Everyone else seems to move faster, to understand it instantly, to belong to it in a way you never quite do. And a small voice has started to whisper that maybe the problem is you. It isn't. Stay with me. This is Blissful Journey, and today I want to talk about something almost no one puts into words. What it actually does to a person to grow up in one world and grow old in another. Because if you were born before the internet, you are carrying something that the people around you cannot see. And I think it's time someone named it for you. Let me take you back to a childhood that moved at the speed of a human being. Back then, the telephone was attached to the wall, and when it rang, you had no idea who was calling. You just picked it up and you found out. You waited for things, for a letter to arrive, for a song to come on the radio so you could catch it on tape. And somewhere along the way, without anyone asking you, that entire world quietly disappeared. Not slowly, not gently. It vanished while you were still living in it, and no one ever sat you down and explained what that would do to you. You woke up, and the day was empty. There were no notifications waiting for you. No feed. No little red numbers demanding your attention. There was just the morning, and whatever you decided to do with it. You went outside, and no one could reach you. Your mother didn't know exactly where you were, and somehow that was normal. You came home when the streetlights came on, because the light was the only clock that mattered. You made plans with a friend days in advance, and you kept them, because there was no way to text and cancel at the last minute. If someone said they would meet you at 4, you simply waited at 4 and they came. There was a trust built into that world, a reliability, a sense that your word was the only technology that mattered, and you were bored. Do you remember boredom? The real kind. The long, slow afternoons where nothing was happening and your mind had nowhere to go but inward. That boredom was not empty. It was building something inside you. It was teaching you how to be alone with yourself without panicking. It was teaching you patience before patience became a lost art. Take a moment and let that land. Because the child you were learned something that most people alive today will never learn. You learned how to wait. You learned how to sit in silence and not reach for anything to fill it. You learned that some things take time, and that the waiting is part of the having. You learned to remember things because you couldn't look them up. Phone numbers lived in your head. Directions lived in your memory. Whole songs, whole poems, the names of everyone on your street. Your mind was not a place you stored things to forget them later. It was the only place you had. And because of that, you learned how to pay attention. Real attention. The kind that stays on one thing. You could read a book for 3 hours and never once feel the pull to check something else. You could listen to an entire album from the first song to the last in the order the artist meant it to be heard. You could sit with one person, one conversation, one thought, and give it everything. That is a kind of focus the modern world is quietly losing. A kind of depth that cannot be downloaded. And it was built into you in those slow afternoons, long before anyone knew what they were teaching you. That was not a small thing. That was the architecture of who you would become. And then, in the span of just a few years, the whole world changed underneath your feet. Psychologists have a name for people like you. They call you a bridge generation. You are the last people who remember life before, and the first who had to adapt to life after. You held both worlds in the same pair of hands, and that is a heavier thing to carry than anyone gives you credit for. Think about what you actually lived through. You watched the letter become the email. You watched the map become a voice in the dashboard telling you where to turn. You watched the photo album become a screen you scroll past without stopping. You watched the record store, the video store, the corner shop where they knew your name, quietly close their doors one by one. You watched conversation itself change from something that happened face to face to something that happens in fragments, on glass, at all hours. You didn't get to grow up inside the new world. You had to move into it as an adult, learning a new language while everyone younger than you spoke it as their mother tongue. And here is the part no one acknowledges. You did it. You adapted. You learned the phone and the apps and the passwords and the endless updates that change everything just as you finally understood it. You kept up even when it exhausted you. You sat with a small screen and figured it out alone, because there was no one to teach you the way you once taught yourself everything. But adapting is not the same as belonging, and somewhere deep inside, you have felt the difference. Let me say something to you gently. If you have ever felt out of step with the world, I want you to understand that you are not slow. You are not behind. You are translating. Every single day, you are translating between the world you came from and the world you live in now. And translation is tiring in a way that has no name. The younger people around you are not translating. They were born fluent. They never knew the slower world, so they never had to grieve it. But you did know it, and a part of you grieves it still, even if you have never said that out loud. I want you to notice something. That ache you sometimes feel when you see everyone with their heads down, staring at their phones in a room full of people. That is not you being old-fashioned. That is you remembering what a room used to feel like. You remember when people looked up. You remember eye contact and undivided attention and the particular warmth of someone who had nowhere else to be but with you. You remember a dinner table where the point of the meal was each other. You are not resisting the future. You are missing something real that was quietly taken away, and no one ever told you it was okay to miss it. Tell me in the comments, what is the one thing from that slower world you miss the most? Just leave it in a single sentence. I think a lot of people need to read that they are not alone in this. Now let me talk about the cost. Because there is a cost, and you have been paying it silently. When the world speeds up and you are the one who remembers the slower pace, you start to feel like you are always a step behind. You feel it when the young person at the counter sighs while you count out your change. You feel it when a machine replaces the person you used to talk to, and there is no one left to ask. You feel it when everyone assumes you already know how to do something that did not exist last year. You feel it when your own children hand you a device and say, "Just figure it out, it's easy," in a tone that makes you feel small. You feel it when the instructions are only online, when the menu is only an app, when the print keeps getting smaller and the world keeps getting faster. There is a quiet grief in slowly realizing that the world is no longer being designed for you. That it is being built for someone else, someone who never had to learn any of it, someone the makers of this new world actually had in mind. And there is a loneliness in being the one who remembers. Because the people who shared your world are fewer now, the ones who would understand exactly what you mean when you say, "Remember when?" You are carrying a whole vanished world in your memory, and every year, fewer people are left to carry it with you. And slowly, quietly, you can start to believe a lie. The lie is that the problem is you, that you are too slow, too old, too out of touch, that the world moved on and left you behind because there was something wrong with you. I need you to hear me. That is not the truth. You were handed the hardest assignment of any generation in living memory. You were asked to unlearn the world you were built for and rebuild yourself inside a world that changes faster than any human being was ever designed to handle. And you are still here, still learning, still keeping up, still showing up. That is not weakness. That is one of the most remarkable acts of endurance a person can perform. If your chest feels a little tight right now, pause and breathe, because I know I am naming things you have carried alone for a long time. Let me tell you what you actually have. The younger world is fast, but it is thin. It knows how to find any answer in 3 seconds, but it has forgotten how to sit with a question. It is connected to everyone and lonelier than any generation before it. It can photograph a sunset in an instant, but it has forgotten how to simply stand there and watch one. And you hold something they are quietly starving for. You know how to be present. You know how to have a conversation that lasts an hour with no screen in sight. You know the value of a handwritten note, a shared meal, a phone call just to hear a voice. You know how to wait, how to savor, how to let a moment be enough without capturing it, without proving it happened. You remember how to be unreachable and how good it felt. You remember a rest that was actually rest, a day off that no one could interrupt, an evening that belonged only to the people in the room. The younger world has forgotten that a person is allowed to disappear for an afternoon and come back whole. But you never forgot. You still know, in your body, what true quiet feels like. And that knowledge is becoming one of the rarest things a human being can hold. These are not outdated skills. These are the exact skills the world is beginning to realize it lost. The very things that make you feel out of step are the things the world is aching to remember. You are not a relic. You are a keeper of something precious. And the people around you, especially the young ones, need what you carry more than they know. So let me offer you a few gentle things to hold on to. The first is this: you are allowed to move at your own pace. You do not have to apologize for taking your time, for reading the paper instead of the feed, for wanting to talk instead of type. Your pace is not a flaw. It is a gift you can give to a world that has forgotten how to slow down. The second is this: you are allowed to grieve the world that disappeared. That grief is not weakness, and it is not just nostalgia, it is love. You loved that slower world, and it is right to miss what you loved. The third is this: share what you remember. Tell the younger people in your life what a Sunday used to feel like. What it was like to be unreachable for a whole afternoon. What silence used to sound like. You are not lecturing them. You are handing them a map to a country they will never get to visit any other way. And there is one more. Be patient with yourself when the new world confuses you. The next time a screen defeats you, or a password fails you, or a machine asks you a question you don't understand, do not call yourself foolish. Remember that you learned an entire world once, from scratch, with no manual and no one to help you. You are not incapable. You are simply tired of being asked to start over, again and again, in a world that never slows down to let you catch your breath. That tiredness is not a flaw in you. It is an honest response to a genuinely difficult thing. And here is the last one. Do not measure yourself by how fast you can keep up with the new. Measure yourself by how much of the good you managed to carry across. Because keeping up was never the real test. Holding on to what mattered while everything changed, that was the test. And you have been passing it, quietly, for years. When the fast world makes you feel small, come back to this truth. You are not behind the times. You are one of the last people who remembers how to live inside them. You crossed from one world to another, on foot, carrying everything you knew. And you did not drop it. You are still holding the warmth, the patience, the presence, the depth. You carried the best of the old world into the new one. And that, quietly, might be the most important thing anyone in your life will ever do. So the next time you feel like the world has moved on without you, I want you to remember, the world did not leave you behind. The world simply forgot what you never did. And you are still here to remind it. You were the last generation to grow up slowly, and that was never something to be ashamed of. It was, and it still is, your quiet superpower. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If any of this reached the part of you that has felt unseen, leave one word below. Just say, remembered, and come back next time, because this is a place where the things you carry are finally understood. This is Blissful Journey.